this is Geoscience's 5308 Sustainable Energy. I'm the professor. Clint Crowley is here. We're online for all lectures, and only the exams will be in person in the Rock Building. So we've got the Teams link here, and down at the bottom, you can see you know, not only are you online, but your camera needs to be on, and your face visible during lectures. Oh, here is the course description. Ensuring sustainable supplies of energy for the future will require a mix of fossil fuels and increasing amounts of renewable energy. This course is an introduction to sustainable energy and will cover the economics of energy generation and conservation, energy systems analysis methodologies, electricity use and efficiency in buildings and industry, electricity supply systems, fossil fuels, wind energy, fundamentals of solar radiation, photovoltaics, solar thermal collectors and systems, ocean, hydropower and geothermal energy, storage technologies, and transportation. There are no prerequisites. So that's the, you know, the one paragraph description of this course. So there is a required textbook. It's a very good textbook. It's not too much out of date. Principles of Sustainable Energy, the third edition. I like third editions because it means that the first edition was successful enough to warrant a second, and every time it gets improved as they go through it. So this is a high-level book written for engineers. I do not expect you to master the material covered, but I do expect you to read the book. I follow the book in my lectures, and I amplify the book. So you'll see the structure of the lectures goes back to the structure of the book. All test questions come from the book. Okay. So you're gonna have to find a way to plow through that material and in advance of the exams. So the best way to do that is read a chapter in advance, listen to my lecture, and repeat, you know, for the next lecture. Read the pertinent chapter before the lecture. You can do it the other way too, but it's sort of better to prepare your mind by reading the book, struggling with the material, and then listening to the lectures where I emphasize different things. So there's also a couple of suggested readings if you're interested in the broad area of energy. One of them is by Maury Klein. It's a few years old. The Power Makers, Steam, Electricity, and the Men Who Made Modern America. That's a good read. And one of my favorite authors about energy, Vaclav Smil, How the World Really Works, the Science Behind How We Got Here and Where We're Going. It explains 7 of the most fundamental realities governing our survival and prosperity, from energy and food production through our material world, its globalization, to risks, our environment, and its future. You may want to join the Facebook group, Sustainable Energy. I set this group up, and I post things there from time to time. So I know the younger generation is not on Facebook, but it might be worth it. All right, grades. Your grade will be based on the best 3 of 4 multiple choice exams, 3 midterms and 1 final, and a class project. The low test score will be dropped, or 1 test may be missed, your choice. So the grading will be 25% for each of the 3 exams, 2 midterms and a final, or 3 midterms if you skip the final. Questions are from the book and supplementary lectures, and especially study guides that we'll post on e-learning. So you get 5% of your grade for a 1-paragraph proposal for your presentation. That shouldn't be October 20th, sorry. That should be March 11th, just before spring break. Then 15% for the oral presentation, and then 5% for class participation. And extra credit, 2 points extra credit is offered for UTD students who complete the online course evaluation. So any questions about that before I move on to the next one? The students are always very interested in grading for good reason. But if not, and we can come back to it later if you don't have questions now. Just to let you know that if you show up, take the exams, do the work, there's no grade that you will get that's going to be lower than a B. So we're talking about splitting up 4 grades in this class: A minus, B plus, and B. Okay, so students sometimes panic because there's a lot of material in this class, as you can imagine. So if you don't get it all, don't freak out. You're not gonna get a C in this class if you show up, right? Yes, Clint.
I should add that the moment of panic will definitely occur to you when you take the tests, which, although they are multiple choice, are incredibly cunning and vicious. But like he says, it's, you know, it's only A minus, B plus, or B.
Yeah.
Because we're not trying to weed you out here.
You would have to find a strategy to get something lower than a B. And I imagine you could come up with one, but I don't encourage it. All right, info about presentations. So oral presentations will be one talk given on some problem in sustainable energy. You get to choose it. You will identify a problem or a topic and submit a short, few sentences written proposal on March 11th. That's what the date should have been previously, March 11th. After approval by a professor, that's me, you will present this to the class on December 8th. Now, I screwed that date up. It's at the end of the semester. It's later in the syllabus. Apologize. That's my second apology for the syllabus. Each presentation must consist of a total of exactly 8 PowerPoint slides. Okay. The first one is the title slide, and the last one is the references slide. The other 6 slides must be made by the student, and each must contain one and only one figure. So that's a challenge. Now, students go, well, wait a minute, I don't want to waste my time. I don't know how to use Illustrator or other graphic software. I don't care. The figures do not need to be computer generated. They can be sketched or traced, but they have to be generated by you. And you can use a lot of cleverness in coming up with the one figure per slide. You can combine material from multiple images that you find. Okay. Points will be taken off if any figures are not made by the student presenter. The total presentation we're aiming for is 10 minutes plus 5 minutes for questions. Now, we'll have more time than that, and we often need more time because it's just any topic a student takes is interesting and worthy of further discussion. Yes, Clint. Okay, here's an example of a proposal for a different class. So this one was Rare Earth Mineral Resources of Texas. My presentation will be in 3 parts, 2 slides each. First part will briefly summarize reasons for the rapidly growing demand for rare earth elements. Second, we'll explore the possibility that Texas has significant rare earth resources. And the third part will explore companies that are exploring for and developing these resources. So that's all I'm looking for. I don't need great detail. I just want to know the topic, the general topic. And you could say, well, there's no way you can cover the rare earth mineral resources, these 3 aspects, with 6 slides. Yeah, well, you could, and hopefully people would be interested to learn more, and you will learn a lot more than you'll be able to present. That's fine. Any questions about that? What I'm looking for this 1 paragraph proposal? Okay. So let's get into what we're going to cover in detail. So today is the course introduction, and we'll get going on the first lecture, Introduction to Sustainable Energy, which is a very long lecture, so it'll take me quite some time. Then we'll be on that for this time and next time and maybe the next. Then we're going to switch over into the economics of energy generations and conservation. So this is a very short chapter, but it's very dense. This is the kind of material that the business school would cover. But for geoscientists interested in energy, not to know the basis on at least something about how companies make decisions about what they're going to invest in would be a disservice to the students. So that's a very important chapter, even though it's about as far away from what we normally teach in geosciences as you can imagine. Then energy systems, next chapter 3 is energy systems analysis methodologies. There's lots of different ways to generate energy. How do we analyze them? Then we'll get into conservation, energy use and efficiency in buildings and industry, which is a fairly long lecture, and we'll continue that the following lecture. And then we'll switch over into electricity supply systems, which will be of great interest, and I'm sure is of great interest right now as a winter storm approaches Dallas, and we have memories of the grid almost going down a few years ago. Then we have the first midterm, which will cover these first 4 chapters. So you've got quite a bit of time, but if you look here, each chapter, the number of pages in each chapter is given. 55 pages in chapter 1, 22 pages in chapter 2, 30 pages in chapter 3, 52. So we're looking at, maybe 200 pages that you've got till, early February to read. So you just have to get to work and don't leave it to the last minute because it will eat your lunch if you do. Then after that, we'll switch over, we'll finish up electricity supply systems. And these lectures are going to slip a little bit, but we've got time. Then we're going to switch over to fossil fuels. And it's kind of interesting the way that fossil fuels, even though they're by far the most important source of energy for the world, and certainly the United States, they're sort of treated like, oh, we don't want to talk about them. But there's no future that doesn't involve a significant amount of fossil fuels in our energy creation system that we can presently imagine. So if we're serious about building sustainable energy, understanding sustainable energy, we have to talk about fossil fuels, but we're not going to talk about them all that much. You'll see that chapter 6 is a very short chapter, and that includes oil, natural gas, and coal. It's a remarkably short chapter because, the spotlight is on renewable energy now, but we'll spend a little more extra time talking about it. Then we get into a very interesting field of nuclear energy. Now, nuclear energy, it was was going to be a panacea. You wouldn't even have to pay for your electricity, and then all of a sudden it became, an evil that should be opposed. And now, as people are struggling to find ways to get to carbon neutrality, nuclear energy is back as a panacea. So that's a very interesting chapter. You almost develop an entire course around that, just about nuclear energy. Anyway, there's a report there you might want to download and look at that I've given you the link to. We'll continue that on February 25th, and then we'll switch over to wind energy. And you can see that chapter 8 is pretty long, but we'll spend a couple of times. Now, UTD is big in wind energy in our mechanical engineering department. So I'm going to get a speaker from mechanical engineering, Valerio Iungo, to talk about what UTD mechanical engineering is doing with wind energy. And then we'll get into the second midterm, and that's your one paragraph project proposal is due. And we can discuss these, whatever projects you've got. You don't have to go off in a, in a closet and figure it out by yourself. We can have an ongoing discussion with any of you about what you would find would be an interesting project. Then we've got spring break, hallelujah. And then we get into solar radiation, which is also a very exciting field. And then we'll do photovoltaics. I'm going to get an outside speaker who works, a really interesting guy who started off as a English major and ended up being a very important person for. Then we get into a slightly different way of collecting solar energy than photovoltaics. And then we'll do ocean hydropower and geothermal energy conversion. And then we'll have a third midterm covering chapters 10 through 12. And then April 13th, storage technologies. That's becoming bigger and bigger. Hydrogen is a really interesting field that's taking off. And then transportation. That gets us towards the end of the semester, but we got a few days lectures left, and then I've got student presentations, which will come at the end of the semester. So that's the syllabus.